In this episode, I'm joined by Matt Bushby, Chief Marketing Officer at Rightmove. With over 2.5 billion visits a year, Rightmove, a FTSE 100 company, is one of the UK's largest online property platforms. Matt joins me to discuss how he's leading the diversification of Rightmove's offering, empowering both consumers and agents in the home moving process, and why he champions the power of brand over performance marketing strategies to build trust and confidence amongst consumers. Matt, really great to have you. So on this, especially, with all the guests we have on here, they've all got amazing stories. So we always start with these podcasts by asking you just to give a little bit of a detail about your background, what you're doing now, and how you've pretty much ended up where you are.
It's a good question. It's been sometimes a bit of a zigzagging route, but I think best described as 20 years spent predominantly in digital businesses. Mm-hmm. And those businesses have ranged really from startups to sitting within bigger media companies like ITV. Previous to the role I'm in now, I spent 7 years at Just Eat doing a range of different things, running global roles, also then latterly looking after marketing for the UK and Ireland for 3 years. Now I'm CMO at Rightmove and have been for just under 3 years. And I think a lot of that gives you, experience of working in different business models. So you work across e-commerce, B2B, marketplaces, direct to consumer. And I think it's been a time really where we've seen a huge amount of change, but some of the fundamentals remain the same. Yeah.
No, as you say, it's a fascinating journey that you've gone on. And obviously in terms of Rightmove, great success, excellent market position as well. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. It's one of those remarkable businesses where you come in and you think, what's the problem we're trying to solve for here?
Yeah.
And actually what you find after a while with Rightmove is that it's a business that provides an incredible foundation to do a huge amount more. And just as a bit of context, Rightmove from a scale point of view, I think we're the third biggest UK domiciled website. So what does that mean? Of all the sites that are based in the UK, we have the third most traffic. So the only three, in fact, the only two in front of us are the BBC and gov.uk. So
wow, okay.
About 28 million people come to Rightmove every year, and we're a FTSE 100 business that is, in some senses, a big business, in some senses, a smaller business. It's about 900 employees, which you were to compare that to a lot of the FTSE 100 would be a much smaller scale. So we're in a really positive position. We've got a huge amount of consumer engagement. We've got, I think, a partner base for whom we play a significant role in sort of helping them to grow their businesses. And increasingly what we're trying to do is play a bigger role and help support them. And that's really what we're trying to do is to play a bigger role. And we see, I think, the success that Rightmove has been as a foundation for what comes next.
Yeah.
And when we've been talking to our board, and in the last couple of years, certainly, we've set forward a kind of a 5-year vision, which is to say we want to play a much bigger role in the lives of our partners, estate agents and our consumers. Yeah. And that might look like, for example, for consumers, working out how much they can afford, offering mortgage advice, actually offering mortgage solutions, helping people to understand how much their home is worth, can they get an extension, starting to play a deeper role through the moving journey. And that moving journey can often be a reasonably painful experience, as I'm sure we all have experience of. So how do we help to use our technology, our experience, all of the various different things that come around our business, including our brand, which gives us real strength in the market, to help to make that easier for consumers. And then I think from a partner point of view, we want to play more than just a transactional role. We want to make sure that actually we're helping them to run their businesses. They're often small businesses worrying about the things that small businesses worry about. They're worrying about, can I get the right staff in? What are my business rates? How do I build my business? How do I grow my business? How do I make sure they're often like families? How do they look after them? And we help with training. We help with exposing them to, I guess, a broader marketplace that maybe as a small business you wouldn't be able to see. So we bring in Google to talk about AI. We'll bring in the Bank of England to talk about the macro economy. But we'll also bring in experts and lawyers, for example, to talk about new legislation that's coming through and how that's going to affect them. So I think that's a part of the journey we're going on, and it's been a really exciting one so far.
Oh, wow. As I say, it's an amazing company. I used to cover it as an analyst.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Always super, super impressed by what they managed to do. I mean, it also as well leads on actually quite nicely to the next question, which is, if you could just chat through some of the sort of initiatives that you're doing in terms of marketing at Rightmove, and you're saying also as well, how those are linked in to the overall business. So talk about some of the objectives. And then sort of the impact that it's had in terms of both the consumers and also as well your customers in terms of the agents.
Of course. So I think if you think about Rightmove, it is in itself a really powerful example of brand and the strength of brand and the impact of brand. So if you think about, this will all make sense when I put it together for you, but we're a very high margin business, as you will know from when you covered us as an analyst. We run a 70% EBITDA margin. And that's how a business that is comparatively small in revenue terms, about 400 million in revenue, is worth just under 6 billion in market cap, because it creates a multiplier. How do you create that margin? You create that margin because people come to Rightmove habitually. They come to Rightmove because it is part of not just their process of buying a house, but it's increasingly part of, they sit on the sofa and think about, well, how can I get inspiration from my neighbour's kitchen? Yeah. What would £20 million get me in central London?
Yeah.
Those sort of, it's an opportunity to ground yourself in what you want to do next, but it's also your opportunity to dream. And I think that role that we play means actually, and something that's pretty unique to me as somebody who's worked for almost 20 years in digital, is we spend very, very little money on performance marketing, a fractional amount. And that's because consumers are coming direct. More than 85%, in fact, more than 95% of our traffic is coming direct to the platform without us paying for it. And that means that actually you've got a lot of people coming because they want to find Rightmove. And that comes through direct visits, but it also comes through, I think, something in the region of 90% of our organic search traffic is brand traffic. So
right, okay, that's interesting. Okay.
This is all people not looking for something specific. They're not looking for, they're not searching for a particular type of house or a particular type of flat. They're searching for Rightmove, and that is brand, and that's the power of brand. And so, from a marketing point of view, what do? We're cognizant of the fact we want, from a consumer point of view, to ensure that the core business remains front of mind to consumers. It's really important for consumers to see that we have the whole of the market available to them. They want to make sure they're not missing anything. So I think our most recent campaign was, if they can find it, so can you. So looking at different ways, sometimes quite playful ways of showing whatever the circumstances, whatever your needs, Rightmove can deliver those. And I think it's been really important for us to continue to do that, to continue to sort of reinforce the role that we play, not just in the market, but in the UK as a whole. On top of that, we've been thinking about ways in which we can start to build some of those newer extensions to the business. And I think a good example is what we've been doing around mortgages. So thinking about a new area, an area that consumers will consider Rightmove for. We know that from the research we've done, but we don't necessarily carry all of the natural advantages we do in property search. So this means that we're taking on some bigger competitors. We're now in the same market as some of the price comparison sites, as some of the banks. So how do we start to create that association in the mind of consumers? And we've tested a lot of things. We've tested thinking about actually how we use partnerships in media. We've looked at creator partnerships, and they've actually worked really well, because if you can find people who are genuinely going through that experience and they can show how Rightmove has supported that, that's been really successful for us. But one of the things that's been sort of critical to all of that is actually playing a more proactive role. And I think one of the things that we've really worked hard on since I've been there is, how do we turn up more often? How do we turn up in more relevant ways? How do we turn up in more entertaining ways? And then how do we use that platform to help us to engage and educate our consumers? So there's a couple of ways we've done that. We've done that with out of home. So we've lots of different executions and ways in which we've done that, whether that's been playing on particular cultural moments,
Yeah.
and thinking about ways in which we can sort of show Rightmove's role, or a sort of a playful interpretation of that. But similarly, we've thought about social. We've thought about how we go from a place where we show some of the things that are inherently there on Rightmove, show some of the properties, but also how do we play to some of the ways in which Rightmove exists in culture, some of the ways people use it but never necessarily talk about the way they use it. But what we're starting to add in now, and something we've just done, for example, on TikTok, is bringing people in who are sort of at the centre of their communities, and are offering really relevant and I think solid financial advice. How do they start to sort of think about ways in which you can use Rightmove to do that? So, for example, we've got mortgage calculators. You can get a mortgage in principle. You can use some of our rental tools. And so we're trying more to think about how we help people to understand how they get their first mortgage, how they rent a flat, that sort of thing. So we're kind of trying to build a much broader and more frequent engagement with consumers than we have done in the past.
Well, funnily enough, I mean, you've answered a lot of the next question I was going to ask, which is exactly that. If you don't do performance marketing, how exactly do you reach sort of consumers? Which channels do you find actually drive the brand engagement, give you the best effect?
It's a really good question. And I think it's a question that sort of, I think is a more, how would I describe it? Probably a more challenging one for marketers than it ever has been. And I think that's across the board.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that fragmentation of media and the fragmentation of media consumption going on. There are still those sort of fundamental tenets that sit in there. How do you create really compelling, really sort of strong emotional engagement? And how do you deliver that in the right context? And how do you find the right audiences at the right moment to do that? And so we're still big spends on TV. We think there's still definitely a role for that. But TV looks very different now to perhaps it did a few years ago. So probably a lot more of our spend has come out of linear and has moved into BVOD, has moved into YouTube. Thinking about actually how we engage with subscriber VOD as well. With, as we already talked about, thinking about social, but thinking about social as a way of engaging with communities and as a way of helping people on their moving journeys. Our brand mission is to give everyone the belief they can make their move. And how do you do that? You do that by helping them to understand the world around them. We did a survey not so long ago that said that even up to the age of 45, the place that you were most likely to go for advice on moving home was your parents. And we think we've got a role as a trusted brand, as a brand that's at scale, to help support in that space. Not necessarily going and asking your parents, of course we're not, but we think there's a role to play there too. So we've done that, and we've also thought about, well, where are the places our audience are, and where are the places where we can be contextually relevant, and whereby we can be a little bit more agile. And we've talked about out of home already, but that's a place where we've been able to tell some of those stories. I think social has been another one of those, and we're also looking at ways in which we can partner. And I touched on the creator community. Increasingly, we're thinking about that and how we can do that in a legitimate way. We're not a fashion brand, so you're not going to see somebody wearing a pair of trainers and go and do that. Similarly, you're not going to see somebody in a house and immediately go and buy a house. But if you've got somebody, another good example is we have something called a renovation calculator, which helps you to understand what value you would add to your house by getting certain work done, a loft conversion, and so we partnered with creators who were doing work on their houses. It seems reasonably straightforward, but they were able to show off how the tools worked and sort of drive that broader engagement. So we're thinking, but what we're doing around that, and what's really important to us, is that we've built what we've called a sort of learning agenda around that. So it's critical that what we're doing, we understand the impact of that. And that's not just the impact within the marketing mix. Actually, how do we deliver value to the business? And how do we, in a business that is effectively B2B in its business model, how do we make sure that we're proving that the work we are doing is driving commercial outcomes? And that's, I think, absolutely critical to it's why we're here. If we're not here to do that, what are we here to do?
Absolutely. I want to come back to that question, actually. Now, can you just go through the strength of your brand platform? And just explain sort of the value that adds to the business and what you can deliver through that.
Yeah, I think when I came into the business, one of the big things that we were looking at was we've got a 5-year vision, and how does the brand support that 5-year vision? And we really set about setting really a longer term brand platform that would then help us to build campaigns and to not just build campaigns, but to act as a rallying cry across the business. So we thought about what we were trying to do strategically, and that strategic role was playing a bigger role in the lives of our partners and consumers. So we built towards a brand platform, which was to give people the belief that they can make their move. And that's really important to us because that belief comes through the tools, comes through the experiences, and comes through the choice that our consumers have on our platform. And it comes through the tools and also the access to consumers that our partners have. So building that platform was really important. And we did that over the course of a number of months. CEO joined at a similar time to me. So it was a real collaboration to say, actually, what's going to be the driving force behind the business to help us to do this. And we did that. We brought brand advocates in from around different teams. They helped shape that. They helped to communicate that. And then that's really been what's underpinned everything across our marketing function, but also what's informed some of what we do from our product roadmap, the way in which we build our company values, all of those different things. So that's been a really important underpinning. And then what we've done from there really is to think about how do we create campaigns that come off that platform. And so the most recent one of those, and what we launched on Christmas Day of 2024, was if they can find it, so can you. And this is the platform that really means that we're showing consumers that whatever their needs, whatever they're looking for, you can find it on Rightmove. And sometimes that's quite practical. So if they can find it, so can you, can be focused on you finding a new build with space for a growing family. But it can also be a lot more playful and thinking about ways in which we either play into popular culture or we play into some of the sort of interesting dynamics that happen within the housing market, and some of the ways that I think some of the stories that we tell and always come back to property in some way, shape or form. So we've had a lot of fun with that. We had a lot of fun with that with our sort of bigger broadcast asset, but we've also used channels, particularly out of home, to tell that story. And we've been doing that throughout the year, and we've thought quite hard, and we really map out our view of the year. What are going to be the big moments that we know about, and those big cultural moments that we want to play into. So we've got a schedule that means that we will drop those in at the right moments, and they mean that actually the campaign keeps a freshness, and it means that we're able to sort of stay front of mind, and it means that we're able to sort of stay, I think, in the conversation, which is we don't have the biggest media budgets in the world, but it means that we sort of are able to punch above our weight on those things.
Let's come back to actually what I wanted to ask. When you said that at the end of the day, the chief goal of what you do in terms of marketing is to drive the overall profitability of the business. And this is increasingly a topic we've talked about it on this podcast. A lot of times about marketers speaking languages of CFO, tying in with business objectives. We've seen over the past couple of years, company increasingly recognizing as they push through price increases to consumers, that marketing, certainly in terms of the perception in the boardroom, has maybe become seen more as a strategic objective and of importance. How does that dynamic work when you speak with your board?
I think I'm fresh from a couple of days with our board, with our PLC board, and I think it's a real challenge for marketers. I think the danger is marketing becomes reduced down to advertising, and advertising is really important. Of course it is, and it's a large part of our job, but our job is much broader than that. It's how do we influence what our products are? How do we influence and how do we shape what our pricing strategy is? How do we understand how our business is trading? And I think as marketers, it's critical that we are clear that the things that we are doing are central to the strategy that the business has. It's helping to shape that strategy, but also it's really clear the results that it's driving and how that ladders up to the revenue that you deliver. And sometimes that's easier in some businesses than it is in others. I know certainly when I was at Just Eat, I ran trading in the UK, and we were a transactional e-commerce business, and so we'd created measurement solutions. You're never 100% sure, and there's no silver bullet in this world, but you had a pretty good sense as to, for the investment that you made, the return you were able to drive from consumer engagement and indeed from consumer transaction. Rightmove is different because where we make our money. So we're effectively a B2B business that has a big consumer front end. So we're all familiar. Lots of us are familiar and use Rightmove on a day-to-day basis. But actually, our revenue streams come primarily from the relationships we have with agents. And that is a sort of a longer term subscription and product offering that means that we're able to put our agents in front of as many consumers as we possibly can. And so actually our B2B marketing efforts we have a clearer return on investment. We're able to track that more with a greater degree of accuracy. We've gone on a journey, and we're continuing to go on a journey from a consumer point of view to demonstrate the financial return on the consumer side, because that's harder to do when you don't have a transaction and you don't have a relationship with direct relationship with the revenue. So one of the things that is really clear for us, though, is that when I'm going into the boardroom, when our team's talking to my colleagues around the exec table, and that becomes one where we're talking, and I think you said already, in the language of the CFO, we're not coming in and talking about social media shares, and we're not coming in these again. Not to say that these are not important building blocks to get us to where we need to get to, but actually, if I'm what's really on the mind of my CEO, what's really on the mind of my CFO, that is, how are we able to drive long-term shareholder value? How are we able to deliver the revenue growth that we want to deliver? How do we deliver the margins that we want across the business? So we've got to show how we contribute to that. Otherwise, the conversation you're having is less relevant. And I think inevitably, if you're not delivering that value and you're not showing the strategic role you play, but also the commercial role you play, I think that's where we as marketers find ourselves in a dangerous place.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And just leading on from that, how much support do you think you get from the CEO and the CFO? I mean, I'll know and take it to a personal level. So, but generally, in your experience, from CEOs and CFOs, because it's a topic that comes up all the time that marketers will often talk about, that they don't feel understood by their CEOs and CFOs. Well, what's your experience of that?
I think I've been pretty fortunate in the past, actually. And some of that has been good fortune of working with good people. And sometimes you choose who you're going to work with, and sometimes that changes over time. But also, I think some of it is as a consequence of what we try to do on a day-to-day basis. So am I going to be talking to, I talk to my CFO and my CEO most days, but I don't talk to them about marketing all that often. Because as an exec team, we're running the business and we're thinking about different ways that we're sort of pushing the strategy forward. But we try as much as we can to bring their teams on the journhour with us. Give an example with the fact we're about to bring in an econometrics platform, and we throughout the pitch process for that, we have our chief data officer and two commercial finance directors in the pitch all the way through it, because we don't want this to be a marketing measurement tool. We want this to be a business measurement tool, and we want this to be part of actually how we show the value that actually not just marketing creates, but is created across the business, and the different drivers and the different levers that are going to create that. So I think building that up means that actually the people within the finance team, the people within the operations team, the people in the data team, when they're having conversations as well with the CEO, with the CFO, they're having conversations where they've been part of the conversation from the beginning, and they are bought in. They're challenging. Don't get me wrong. They're healthily challenging on all those things. But actually, once they've helped to shape the solution as well, then that comes forward as a broader business solution. So, I think I would say I've been very lucky because I've had very supportive CFOs and CEOs. We've played our own part in doing that, but I think increasingly if you have people who are coming, certainly in the businesses I've worked in, if you come from digital businesses, my CEO at the moment is ex-Expedia.
Right, okay.
They know inherently that growth is often a marketing-driven enterprise.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important. There's a load of constituent parts, but I think there's generally been an environment of support and healthy challenge.
Yeah, which, as you say, is fantastic. And I mean, the point that sort of was talking about several years ago, not talking this several years ago in this conversation, but several years ago we had the whole thing where, because a brand's needing to push through pricing, a classic example. And you would argue in a different way, sort of what you've done in terms of Rightmove as a brand is another example of that, how firms actually deliver real top line value by building up a strong brand.
Yeah, I think our brand helps us in delivering our value story to our partners. And I think it's really important. We've got to, our partner success is our success.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can show that and demonstrate that, then that helps us to, I think, really demonstrate and to communicate the value that we're delivering to their businesses. And then that's a much healthier conversation, I think, to be having than having just a sort of a more price-based conversation, which, and I think that all of those things are things that we take into account. And I think one of the things that's important as well is thinking about the way in which we leverage all the various different parts of what we do. Because when we're talking about communications and we've been talking primarily about paid channels, obviously when there's 28 million people coming to your platform is one of your biggest marketing channels as well. And so is your CRM. So we brought Braze on board recently as a partner to help us to really leverage all the data that we have. We have a huge amount of data. We have a huge amount of interactions. These are big natural advantages that we have as an organization. How do we take advantage of those? How do we make more of those? And how do we, I think, build on our app, our website, our push notifications, our emails? How do we use all of those to help to give consumers really personalized content, really relevant content, stuff that's going to actually make their experience better, but actually as in the round has commercial benefit too. So when we're thinking about that, and that sort of comes all the way back around to relationships with the C-suite, is we need to think about holistically how we're engaging with our consumers and with our partners, and how as a marketing team are we doing that, rather than just saying, well, I want a bit more budget. Actually, this year what I'm going to do is we're going to work really closely with the data team to change the way in which we structure our data to create a functioning single customer view, and then we can leverage that back through. So I think that's just slightly reframing the role that you play within the business as well.
Now, normally when we do these things, we finish off by asking sort of for recommendations before, or tips that you can give people. Before that, I want to go back to something you said before. You worked at Just Eat. Just Eat and Rightmove, fantastic brands. And they've established really, really strong market positions. So in a lot of ways, you could say that there's quite a few similarities between the two. What would you highlight as really the main differences?
That's a really good question. I think from the surface, similar businesses, as you say, big brands, successful businesses, and marketplaces. So consumers one side, restaurants or estate agents on the other side, and sort of facilitating that join together. So lots of similarities, but actually from a different, I can maybe think of two obvious differences, one of which is the revenue models. And that changes fundamentally how we think about things. So Just Eat made its revenue from a consumer transaction, Rightmove from our partner subscriptions and products. And that change, and we've already talked about this, but how you measure, how you invest, how you structure your teams, all of those sorts of things feel fundamentally different. I think the other thing is maybe the approach, and I come back to kind of the strength of brand. The Just Eat brand was a really strong brand, and we worked really, really hard to continue to refresh that brand and make sure it was relevant in the market. So making sure that we were, one of the challenges that we had was with younger consumers. Actually, how do we make sure that so we bring on the right supply, We think about our advertising strategy. We think about our local activations. We think about our sponsorships, all those things that sort of build that. But if actually we come back to Rightmove, what Rightmove has is such a strong brand that even at Just Eat, with all the investment put into the brand, we were still really fighting out in a performance marketing space a lot. And we were really thinking about ways in which we could win the consumer day to day. The consumer could go in any one of three directions and we needed to be there. One of the things that has been built over time through the product experience, through the marketing, through generally the interactions that consumers have had with Rightmove is that they've built a real relationship and a trust with the brand that means that when somebody's thinking where they're going to go next, we don't have to have a fight every time they do that. They're coming straight in. So lots of similarities, but also some sort of sometimes subtle differences that have big impact.
And finally, you know, we always with these podcasts ask the sort of our guests to give some tips to our listeners as to what they should, you know, what would be the recommendations you would give to them? So
I might give a couple if I can. I think one of which is that we are always, and I've certainly found this, is I don't have the answers to everything. In fact, I don't have the answers to a lot of the questions that come through. And so I think there's two really important things that come from that. One of which is to really build the best teams you possibly can with the expertise that you can to help to do that. Really trust your teams, really trust the people around you to not just execute, but actually come up with the solutions, come up with the answers and really build those, build that accountability and build that delivery. But also build a network. I think networking can sometimes be seen as something that is, I guess, outside of your core job. I think it's absolutely central because it means that you have a network of people that you can come to when you have something that you don't know the answer to, and you can ask somebody a question. And people are always very, very generous with their time. So I would say to people, always ask the question, connect yourself with people who you like, you enjoy spending time with, but also people who can help you with the things that you want to do and things that you need to do. So I think that's sort of from a team and a people perspective. And also don't be afraid generally of where your career is going to go. I think my career's gone in various different zigzags at various different places. And I think there is a degree to which if you try to plan for every moment, it's never going to quite go to plan. So I think there's a degree to which one needs to roll with it. But then I think we've gone through, this has been a sort of a fairly consistent theme of this conversation, which is, I think from a marketing point of view, our challenge is absolutely to be the commercial and strategic drivers of a business. And I think we're the best placed people around the board table to do that because we know the customer, we understand the drivers of revenue, we understand the drivers of engagement. We sit across the way in which the business trades on a day-to-day basis. We are closest to our brand and the way in which that drives outcomes and results. So we should be absolutely central to those conversations. I think it's up to us to make sure that we don't just tell people that we should be there, but we go and really reach out and engage across the business to show the value that we can deliver and the value that we can add and create those alliances around the business that then help you to sort of come back and deliver the best work. So then I think what you end up doing is you build trust and you build a really strong role within the organisation. And I think that's good for us as marketers, but I genuinely think that's good for businesses because that means that the customer is at the heart of what you're doing. And actually, I think, as I say, marketing is in the very best place to deliver that.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to disagree with any of that, and I will agree with virtually all of it. So, no, I think that's absolutely true. As you say, marketing has a unique position. A lot of the times it's not recognised the value that it adds. Yeah, and that needs to change. Thank you, Matt. It's been great to hear how Rightmove is leaning into its brand strength, enhancing the customer experience and championing its partners to drive business results in the long term. If there's anything you'd like to ask us or hear more about, you can visit the JCDecaux Marketing Hub online. We hope you enjoyed listening. And wherever you get your podcasts, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.